Good afternoon and welcome back to Growing Together, episode number 6. Today we have Pastor Jonathan OldHorse from YHN Lutheran here in Rapid City. Jonathan, how are you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me over here. It's
Yeah,
a true honor, for
yeah,
sure.
no, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to have you here. Um, how's been going? How is your life going after pandemic? How's everything going at your church, man?
Uh, we are slowly starting to get things back to normal. It was a very tough year. A lot of deaths, a lot of sadness. Got sick myself. Um, but as things are kind of smoothing out towards springtime, we're able to get our medicines are starting to come back, our traditional medicines. So we're looking forward to springtime to cleaning that air and getting on with life. But it was very tough mentally, spiritually, physically. But we made it to the end game.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that, man, and we're glad to have you here today. For sure, you have a lot of wisdom to share with us, and I'm excited just to have this conversation like two friends, man.
Sure, for sure. I'm looking forward to it.
You know. So, tell us, who is Jonathan Alhorst? How will people describe you?
How would people describe
Yeah,
Jonathan Oldhorse?
yeah.
Well, that's a conversation in itself. Uh, Jonathan Oldhorse is uh, Army veteran, a paratrooper, uh, a Lakota, spiritual man, a spiritual leader, and somebody that loves martial arts and loves to be around people, wants the best for his people, the Indian, the Lakota people, the people of Woyaton, other humans, just wants to have a good life and everyone to be safe. And he works really hard to bring goodness to the community and to the people living that life of a Lakota like his ancestors. That's who they would say the real John Oldhorse is. Um, some might talk about my issues with PTSD and those times of the past when I had to rely on alcohol to get through things. But those are all the challenges is of being adopted out and really having no idea who I was until probably these past 10 years or so. I uh, I lived a life where everyone told me what to be, and didn't really realize who I was until just recently. The John that you know, I think, is the John that I've always been looking for. That was always fighting to get out.
Mm.
Uh, there's just a lot of things from the past that caused a lot of issues up in the mind and in the heart that were very hard to come to terms with. But through Tumkashala, through Jesus, um, through those traditional ways and following the ways of the cross, it's really brought a lot of healing and allowed me to meet people that I normally wouldn't have if I would have kept some of those old behaviors from the past.
Wow, man. What a powerful words you're saying right now. Just, like, just to hear your transition from well, like, that small story of, like, what you have become right now. It's amazing, and just saying that you relate a lot on God and Jesus, like, that's the way.
Well, I had no choice. Sometimes people say you don't really meet Tumkashala until you hit that rock bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And it took going to places where the darkest, ugliest, saddest place that I ever had been in my life, and couldn't do it anymore. And I asked Tumkashala or Jesus, they're both the same, but I asked him just to help me. Whatever I do, if you help me, I'll walk with you.
Mm.
And it's going on for the way of the cross. It's going on 11 years. Um, but as a spiritual man, as a man of the Red Road, it's 27 years that I've been a spiritual man and got away from a lot of those things, those bad things that had
Mm.
happened due to policies of the past, of the boarding school and being adopted out, and the assimilation policies and all those things. Those were things that I've just started to realized that they had a lot more impact on my mind and my spirit than I had ever thought possible.
Was that hard to you to become spiritual when you were carrying all this stuff in your heart and in your mind? When you decide to move forward, is that was like difficult for you?
It was. Rewind back to 2000, 2007, 2008, when I just came home from Iraq. I was in the warrior transition unit. I was in rehab for 3 years. The Army had basically turned its back on me. I was having a lot of mental problems, lost my family, and really went into those dark places. And when I had cut my hair off to go back in the Army, that was another thing that was really hard, because I worked really hard to grow my hair and to get away from that dominant society when I came back to the people. But when I cut my hair that second time to go and fight over in Iraq, it psychologically damaged me. And when I came home, well, even when the point when I cut my hair, I stopped talking Lakota. I had put the pipe away. I didn't want to. I didn't feel worthy to walk that red road anymore, because my hands were dirty. My mind was tainted. I just didn't feel worthy, and I walked in darkness for a lot of ways. And Jesus came to me and said, basically, in the living room of my house when I lived in Star Village, I was going to take my life. And just as I was about ready to pull the trigger, my whole house lit up white as snow. And I remember saying, I don't know who you are or what your name is, if it's Tunkashala, Jesus, God, I don't care, just help me. I can't live this way anymore. It's too hard. I don't like the man that I am. And I don't feel worthy to do these things. And it just felt like the biggest hug about how you feel when your child was first born, that everything was going to be okay. And Jesus said, I got some things that I want to show you, but put those things away for a while, the old way, and learn about me. And then we'll come back and we'll talk about that old way of life again. And so after that happened, that was in March of 2008 or 9, and I became baptized as a Christian a week later after that time frame. And since then, I've been a messenger of Jesus, because he saved my life and gave me purpose that I had lost after coming home from the military and not knowing who I was anymore, and figuring out what I was going to do. There was a lot of elders at that time that knew I shouldn't have gone in the military. My role was already done of being an active warrior. My path was supposed to always been to be that spiritual person, the man of prayer. And so when I went over there, all those things that I went over there for, to make sure that my father, that our family would be recognized, we were there when the country asked of us. We were required to do those things. But it came with a cost, because I volunteered to go. So the people that I took their place for, if they had mental issue, I got to carry the mental issue. I carry those sadness. Everything that I gave my life for that one person or whoever stayed behind, because I knew a lot of people that had gone over there 4 or 5 times, and I hadn't even gone over once yet.
Did you feel called to do that?
I did.
You feel the call from God to say, you need to volunteer, you need to...
You put your time in to protect the people, to protect the country. And I think I had to go over there as well. In order for me to be where I am, I had to endure some bad things mentally. And I remember knowing and that Tunkashala will look after us, and that my mind will be okay, and that we'll be back safe. But as time went on over there, and it was during the surge in 2006, so there was a lot of IEDs more. It wasn't a lot of gun battle. It was more getting hit with roadside bombs, and um, I was hit. I was a victim of 3 of them. The third one is what finished my career. But it was those times. It was just so stressful.
Mm-hmm.
You knew everyone you knew was getting wounded or getting hurt in these IED blasts, and you couldn't. You had to get up every day and put your faith in the Creator that you were going to. Well, hopefully I'll make it back by lunchtime.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as lunch is done, you go back out again. Well, I'm going to make it through to dinner. It became more of prayer, of more prayer to Tunkashla, because I was by myself as well. There was no other Indians over there. You heard all kinds of stories that there was all kinds of Lakotas over in Iraq, but I only met one, and that was like a week before I got medevaced out of country. So I was the only one that was there. But a lot of people in my company, I volunteered, so I went over with a different company. But I had brought the Chinupa, and they respected me for those Indian beliefs, and I think it really. Things could have been a lot worse if I would have had zero faith instead of the little bit that I had left of memory from the Lakota way of life.
Would you say that every second or every moment did you had God in your thoughts? You know, like you just like you're going to this risk adventure, and then you know, like you say, I don't know if I'm gonna come back to lunch. Like, if that was like, do you feel that God was with you all the time, or you will just pray at the beginning and then from there, like it's really hard to like focus on like have God in your mind and stuff like that, or how would you like?
In the morning time, I'd wake up and I would pray, burn some sage. There's a lot of old traditional songs, war party songs that I would rely on to sing in the morning. A particular one was one of the Kit Fox Society, and it says in English that I'm a warrior, and because of that, my life is short. Nake nung la wa is how you would say that. Because of these things, you know, I'm willingly give my life, so my life is short. My life doesn't belong to me. And that's always, ever since I picked up that Chinupa when I was 25, the lesson that they give you, they pass it to you 3 times. And each time they'll take it back. So it's like this 3 times. So you had these 3 times to say, no, I don't want that. But on that 4th time, they present it to you and you take it. When you take that, then that person, the spiritual person, there's a prayer that says, it says your life no longer belongs to you. Your life belongs to Tunkashla. Your life belongs to the people. And that's that reminder. No matter what we do in life, the people always come first. Tunkashla always comes first. And it wasn't like I was praying to stay alive, but I was praying for safety. Praying that if I do have to give my life, it's for purpose. That it has some meaning to it. We had talked last Sunday, I think, in service about hokahe. You might have heard that from the old Indian movies from back in the day, from like the Little Bighorn. It means like it's a good day to die, but it's not. I'm just going to go outside and give up my life for no reason. It was a good day to die because I'm good with Tunkashla. My heart is good. My life, if I give my life for this, it will have purpose. My death will have meaning. My platoon will be safe. The people will be able to live another day. That's always the point of our lives as Lakota men, to make sure that everyone's safe.
So you would say that Lakotas live for their people?
Oh yes.
Okay.
You're obligated. If the worst thing that you can be as a Ikchewi Chashra, as a human, is to be selfish and to be an individual. In our world, there's no. Yes, we have words for I, mine, my, but when we talk in public, those aren't words that we use. It's never about us as an individual. Excuse me, hitting the microphone. It's us. It's ours. We're collectively related to each other, and so for the betterment of the people, my hardship doesn't mean much as long as the people are taken care of. We're willing to sacrifice ourselves in that manner. And it's the same. My uncle Roger Bird, he's a medicine man. He would say that even though it's in the 2000s, those commitments, those rules that we had when Tunkashla came and said this is how men and women are supposed to be, Lakota men and women, it doesn't stop just because our world was changed and our way of life had been overtaken by a foreign people. Those requirements and those commitments to the Creator, they're still as valid back in the 1800s as they are in 2021 of how we are supposed to live with each other. Tunkashla is the only one that can change those things. Because if we start changing things, then we think we're smarter than the Creator. And then that's when we start to get arrogant. And then, He has ways to bring us back to being humble.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. Do you, I can see that your roots from being a Lakota, it's like your base of your life.
Yes.
Right? How you transmit that to the new generations, right? Like, right now everything is so different, as you're saying. And I know you have a group of Lakota kids, right?
Yes.
How you're transmitting that to them? What they think about these beliefs from like 200 years ago? Like why they think about those things?
It's a new generation, and a lot of the younger ones, they hear what I'm saying, but their hearts aren't strong like they used to be. They know that bravery and courage, selfless service, self-sacrifice, they know those are traits that all of us have in us, but the psychology of Indians, especially Indian men now, they have their whole outlook on life has been totally destroyed, and somehow in their psyche, with the way that the reservation did it did exactly what it was supposed to have done. The way that was brought about was to destroy the will of the people and to break them and to get them totally dependent on somebody else. The rules back then, the agents would tell them, you're only here to survive. This is all your life is going to be, is survive. But as time has gone by, from the reservation period up till now, this younger generation, they've just been bombarded with the negativity that we're weak, that we're drunks, that we're uneducated, that we're not smart. And so they believe in it. And as much as they want to be warriors in their heart, they don't have the endurance to pick it up and carry it. Like Jesus says, that cross gets heavy sometimes. We just can't drop it and run away. These young men, they've gotten used to dropping things and running away. But because of the way that I was taught by these older men, for me, personally, I'm 3 generations removed from being free. So I'm the third generation to be born in captivity, in under American rule. But in those 3 generations of time, from the time of my great grandpa up until now, so much knowledge and so much of our mindset is totally gone. If you might think of it like, if we think of it in real terms, the knowledge of the past now is like a photograph, a black and white photograph, and as the negative gets used more and more, it gets dimmer and dimmer till you can't really see anything. It's just a shape. That's like where we are right now. We are Indian genetically, but as far as our ancestors are, the people that were born, I would say the people that were born after 1880, we are no longer like those people. The spirits even say that sometimes they don't recognize us because we've changed so much. What the Americans and the Europeans and all these foreign peoples did to us, reprogrammed our DNA and our minds.
Now that you're a spiritual man, that you have a group of people, right? And I'm sure that's a lot of pressure to guide, right, on this spiritual journey. Where do you find God during your day?
I find God. I find God all over. I see him. I see him in children. I see him in the elders. I see him here with us having these conversations. I like when I drive. I talk to him. I talk to him in the car. You know, just whatever is going on. He always says to talk to him like he's a friend. He's sitting right in the car next to me, and but I see him. I see him a lot when I'm peaceful, or when I'm very, very contemplative of things. But he's always around. It's just sometimes we get so drawn up in that dominant world that we don't listen. And sometimes it's good advice to take off our shoes and socks and go outside with our bare feet and reconnect with the earth. It dissipates all that energy. So try it sometime.
For sure I will.
Go outside and go in that grass and step on it. That's why I always tell you, in those sacred spaces, you never wore shoes. You know, they might wear their moccasins, but it was always bare feet because you wanted to have that connection to the land. So you would always stay rooted and you would always have that foundation.
So tell me a little bit more about Wyatt Lutheran. How I know, and maybe this is new for some of the people that are watching us today. How just like the community like formed, you know, from where like the necessity of like have a space to worship. How is the story of that?
So the story of Woyaton, it started out as basically a dream and a conversation between Pastor Joanne Conroy, who was the very first pastor of Woyaton, Pastor John Mappa, who was down at Atonement, Pastor Bruce Thalaker, who was an alumni from here. It was basically those three people had gotten together, and Atonement they were buying land further over on the north side, and so that building was there. But those three people had talked about starting an Indian mission, and so that's basically how it started. And it was a mission start from those days with Joanne Conroy up until 2013. So from the time that it started as a mission start, it was really, really small. No one really knew anything about Native ministry, and even today, Native ministry is its own thing, and none of us really know how to do Native ministry because it's never really been done in the way that it is at Woyaton. But to get back to the history, so from Joanne Conroy, she was the first Native. And then it was 3 non-Natives that came. Pastor Larry was one of them. Jean was a piano player. She was one. Chuck Hazlitt was temporary. Then Pastor David came. Pastor David came when I came. Well, we all started at the same time, and I wasn't even going to church. I went up there I was asked to teach some kids how to sing, and actually it was Duran and Chris White Eagle. He had asked to teach their boys how to sing.
And this is the period of when you were having all these troubles, or like?
Yes, I was trying to find my way back to God and trying to find my way in my civilian world. Because when I got out of the service, basically I stayed in my house with the shades drawn and the doors locked. I didn't go anywhere. I didn't do anything. I was just that stereotype war veteran with some very bad mental problems. But I was singing for the kids and I was getting out a lot more. And so Woyaton started out of just going there a couple days and on Sundays and singing 2 songs. I really wasn't, I would listen, but I wasn't really paying attention until those other things happened. But it started out with the drum. The drum and the prayer songs and the sage were the most important pieces that I liked to see. when I first got there. Wow, this is pretty cool that a church is allowing this stuff to happen, because up till then, up till that point in time, we were always taught it was you either choose Christianity or you choose the old way. There was no mixture, combination of both. The only reason that I know that that it's possible is because my father-in-law, Bill Center, was the exact same way. He was Episcopal layman, and his dad was responsible for a majority of the Episcopal churches on Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. But he was also a spiritual man. He was taught by his grandpa Goodlance, and had gone all over with Crow Dog and all those old men of Fool's Crow. He'd been around, so he knew both ways of life. And those older people back then, they really weren't as militant as it is now. Sometimes they use that Christianity. They become baptized and they become deacons just so those priests would leave them alone. Maybe I did the same thing. I'm coming here just because someone asked me to. But as time went on, they started to, hey, this is something that I really like. I can buy into this. This is very similar to our Lakota way of life.
Do you start to feel invested on that?
Yes, that if I believe in the Chinoopa, my knowledge of the way of Jesus is the same, because it's the same God. Mm-hmm. But it was just a seamless transition of our Lakota people are known the world over for their strength of prayer. The Indians are known all over the world for their prayer. The Chinoopa has been around a long time. But the Christian faith, we didn't really know anything about. So as we read the Bible and all those things, if it would have been brought about in the way that it was supposed to have been, not with the Western influence, but maybe how it was when they went into Ethiopia in the original times, it was more of an immersion. They kept their culture intact, but they used the teachings of Jesus to make that spiritual life that much more meaningful. And that's how I believe that Jesus makes my life that much more powerful, because a lot of us, we don't speak our language anymore, but those Lakowi Chohan, those Lakota ways of life, they're written in that book. They're validated in that book. So as we're going through life, relearning how to be Indian, we're also learning how to be followers of Jesus through the Bible, because our validations are in there. How to treat each other, how to pray to the Creator, what is required of us. He even talks about our feathers in the Bible. So we know that the Wambli, the eagle, is in the Bible. We know that our sage, our ceremonies, our prayers, they're all in there. But it's figuring out how to decipher the weaponization of our faith to what was actually the original teachings of those times. So I think our big gap at Woyaton was, Pastor Dave always used to tell us, we don't stress the law here, because when the church came, they came with a Bible and they came with a gun, and they were bombarded with the law. Indians don't know anything about the good news. And so we focus a lot more on Jesus' story from a positive standpoint, but it's a lot of backpedaling to fix the negative narrative that the Jesus story has on just speaking for the Lakota people. That those things that were told to us, we still want to believe them, but you're kind of, I don't know, because these people that are coming here and saying this, they're doing the exact opposite. They're abusing us. They're hurting us. They're taking our children away. So how can we truly follow this path? And some things that I've been discerning about lately is the original peoples, the Jewish people, and then their cousins, the Muslims or whatever. I always wonder, where do the natives fit in? They had to have known about us, but I would like to talk to them as well, because Indians, and I might even I'll throw you in there as well, because your ancestors had their own way of life.
Mm-hmm.
The people that came to them, they forced their thoughts on these people. So how do we know what's real? Because everything that's come up to this time has been from people that have really kind of been dishonest, and maybe didn't know their version of Jesus or God as well as they were trying to. As our ancestors were telling them, we already know who Jesus is. We know who Tunkashla is. He's been here. We've talked to him. We live it.
Different names or different, you know.
Yes.
But we know it, you know. And yeah, for sure. And so I'm really curious about, so when Jonathan OldHorse started to take the lead of the congregation, of your people, when you feel that call, because you start with the kids, right? And those things start like that.
Yes.
Did you just one day jump in, or would you like just throw to the lions then and say like, Jonathan, you need to do this, I think we believe in you, or how that story is?
That one was the way that it started. Like I said, I would sing, and then I was a puppet master with Pastor David for a while. He brought the puppets, and then he said, "Would you mind doing some of the readings? If you do the readings, I'll do the sermon and stuff." So in a way, he was slowly, sneakily putting me into these positions to learn those things. And as time went on, this is what we're going to do this time. And so I would just watch him, and this was all inspired by the Creator. It was, I ran away from it 3 times. I didn't want to do it.
Okay.
I can't do this. This isn't for me.
Uh-huh.
No, and this last time when I came back, the Creator had told me that I let you slide these past 2 times. Now no more. It's time to work, and for 10 years, you got 10 years to walk this path. So I've walked it, and I don't. I might question it, but I'll wake up, or I'll say, "Oh, I'm not doing this. I'll quit tomorrow." I could, but I wake up every morning, splash water on my face, and I'll do it. But all these things, I don't know how. I would tell you, as a human, I have no idea why I know what I know or how I learned to do these things, especially from the ceremonial level of the Christian faith. It feels like I've always known it. That Warriorton was, I won't say that it was specifically meant for me, but there was something there that had guided me. And because I didn't reach for it. I didn't say, this is what I want. And I don't, no real person would ever, nobody wants to be a leader if they have a choice. Nobody definitely doesn't want to be a spiritual leader if they have a choice. They have no idea what they're getting into.
Well, it's scary.
Yeah.
It is scary. Would you still feel scary sometimes to talk in front of these people that I'm actually like counting on you to hear what they need today? Do you still feel scared, or do you just feel like a little bit more like in rhythm?
I'm always terrified. I have very bad stage fright. A lot of people don't realize that I'm actually very shy, and I have a hard time around people. But in Warriorton or places, I always pray and ask for strength to get up and be.
You're becoming a warrior.
Yes, whatever you need me to do, I'll do it. Just help me get through it, and I know that if I say that beforehand, that it's not about me. Tunkashla will help me get through those things. But the times that I've forgotten to remind myself, then that's when things can get out of hand, and you might start going off script, or you start forgetting your talking points. But I never asked for that position, but Tunkashla put me in that spot,
Mm-hmm.
and the people chose me. If that's one thing I don't think a lot of people don't know. I didn't get hired. I didn't come from the synod. I am the first. I am the first from that congregation to have been raised up to be the leader. And I'm not. Please forgive me if it sounds like I'm bragging, but
No.
um, you're not supposed to walk togalaka. You're not supposed to really talk about those things about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that it's important for the people to know that um, the people chose me, and they chose me. They chose me over a pastor that had good credentials and good paper and in the regular world, in the non-Indian world, the
Mm-hmm.
non-Woyatan world, he might have been the perfect fit, but Woyatan is its own dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
That there's something special about it because we're still very much Lakota. We might be assimilated, but we've chosen how far to take that assimilation, and actually we've kind of reverted and taken back our space. We have gotten away from a lot of the old ideology and symbolism that was brought by the dominant culture, and brought in more things that symbols that are universal to us, representing like the tree of life or things like that. Those symbols that we know they bring us that power. They bring us those understandings, and I think being that I was brought up in the traditional world and knew a little bit of the Christian world through my father-in-law, that it was just a seamless transition of basically it was copying. I didn't the things that Pastor Dave had done or the things that my father-in-law had done or others that I had watched. And our culture has always been about watching. If you were in a ceremonial person, if you were a helper at some of these things, the old men, they wouldn't come over and walk you.
Yeah.
You sat and you watched. You paid attention to them. And sometimes you've been around me your whole life. You never caught that. You expect me to hold your hand. So I learned a lot of things, but I think back then, because everyone was relatively new to the Christian faith, and the synod was they had enough enlightenment to know that Indian ministry, what was going on with it at that time, really wasn't right. There was a lot of exploitation of our culture and things like that. They were interested less in the spiritual side of things and more in the social side, especially with the powwow. And that was one thing that I had a problem with, is that we're not exhibits in a zoo. We don't want to be those poster people for things like this. Our way of life, our spiritual life is very special and very sacred, and we should be treated as such.
You will share with people, but it's not a show, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I had the opportunity 2 years, I believe, 2 years, to go to a powwow down in Pine Ridge. And it's a powerful experience. And I remember a year that the people from the powwow, they have Maui people from Hawaii. That was amazing, man. Just like the culture exchange and all that. It was just like, you can see how so similar is like the way to worship, back in time. Mexicans, like Indian Mexicans too, like the way that the rituals and all that stuff, dances, same thing. As you say, we knew how to worship God,
Yes.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And now that Wyattton, it seems to have a really good leader and also a really strong base. I had the opportunity to be worship with you before, and just to go for walking tacos that day, and it's amazing. But your community, man, it feels so different. It feels, you can feel the welcome right away. You can feel how everybody's smiling at you, and they say thank you for coming. It's just so amazing what kind of culture you have created. I'm sure with a lot of effort. you know, to welcome everybody from outside, you know. My question is, what Wyattton needs, you know, because we talk as Christians, a lot of the talks is like charity and like let's help, but what would you say is really the need from us, you know, from the outsiders, from like people that doesn't worship from Wyattton? Do you it is more important to us instead of like bring like food and all that stuff, like that charity stuff, to more like learn about and like just have the experience to worship with you? What would you think it will be like helpful?
I think I think what's helpful is just coming over and experiencing and then having that courage to ask a question. You know, why are these things done? You know, what was the purpose behind these things? The good thing about Woyaton is that everyone is welcome, and I think, you know, a lot of that has to come, you know, even from my own upbringing. You know, I've lived such a life of being an outsider and being invisible, and you know, just the city that we live in, we're invisible, and people say terrible things and all that kind of stuff. And so the empathetic person that I am, and the way that I was treated, you know, and get treated sometimes nowadays, I know what it feels for me. I don't want anyone to ever feel like they're not welcome. And we go out of our, and it's not that it's fake, but we go out of our way to, hey, thank you for coming. You know, please sit down. Can I come up and pray with the sage? Can I do these things? Of course you can. These are here for you. You know, I think, you know, that the scripture lesson when it talks about, you know, even dogs take crumbs off the master's table. The Lakota people and natives in general, they were not taught to be stingy with their stuff. When you come to somebody's camp, you got the place of honor. You got the best place to sit. You got the choicest meats. You got the, you know, the most comfortable bed. You treat it as a relative and a guest in our home, and that's Tunkashwala's house. So we have to be mindful that this is for everybody, not just the beautiful people that have everything, you know, pretty much taken for them in life. And I think, you know, the people at Woyaton, because there's a lot of things that are just right up in your face that are sad and destructive and chaotic, that for that hour or so that we're there, that's just time to be peaceful and to forget all about that and be a good relative to one another. I think that's the biggest thing I think to take away from that, of what can we learn about Woyaton. I think it's come to be sincere, being humble. You know, there's not a lot of rituals that we do there, but it's just more prayer and praise and reminding ourselves of if we love the Creator with everything that we are, and we treat each other as a relative, and we're reminded to live those 7 laws of compassion and generosity and you know, those things, being honest. When we work with that and we teach those to anyone that's coming, those are things that they can take back to their own community. Those are things that they might not think about, because this over here on this part of town, you know, if we're breaking ourselves down, our philosophies of life are different. You know, over here, you know, outside of the Indian box, it's more individuality, and you know, you could see it when the world turned in on itself. My personal freedoms, I feel uncomfortable. There was all these I's in my personal needs. It wasn't about our neighbor. The way of life of the Lakota was always about taking care of your neighbor, being a good relative to them, not pushing my stuff on you.
Yeah. And if you don't know, right now Wyattton, it's almost getting finished, the retreat center, right?
Yes, April 1st it'll be finished.
Okay. where are you going with that? What is your plan for Wyattton and the retreat center?
The plan, that is going to be a one-stop shop of classes, um, mentorship, uh, some mental health, spiritual. Um, it's all towards bringing wellness to the community. There's a food bank.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's a resource center, but I picture it in my mind almost like a living museum or a Holocaust museum of these are the things that got us to this point of all the chaos that has the crime and the abuses of children and elderly and all those kind of inequity and inequality things. These are what got us here. This Indian center is going to be the things that bring in these new medicines of maybe using Zoom for people to come and talk to us about our traumas. The thing that we're hearing about and the very positive thing about it is Wambali Ska and Woyaton are the first real native entity in this city that has actually been able to break that barrier of making sincere, honest alliances with people, that there was no hidden agenda, and even to get the city involved with the Native project, and especially to have basically a new start in the activist world, to get a brand new building and a new facility to coordinate all these things. I mean, part of the programming that we're going to have is a community court, which starts in April. We're going to be working with the state's attorney's office to be doing alternative justice for nonviolent offenders on the north side in the Indian community. Instead of sending them off to jail, they're going to come to us, and we will take care of that restorative justice for the community. So
Wow,
it's
man.
a plus for everybody.
Yeah, for sure.
And then on-site grief counselors, trauma counselors, because a lot of the issues that are still pertaining to this day, it is because of being adopted out in the boarding school. People think that's not hundreds of years ago. I mean, that's 50 years. You know, my mother was the last generation of the of that hardcore boarding school era. I'm the last generation of the natives to be taken away. But I was almost had to be given back because ICWA came out. The Indian Child Welfare Act came out a year and a half after I was born, and my brother, that my white parents adopted, they almost had to give him back because he fell within the Indian Child Welfare Act, and that's the law that said that non-natives could no longer raise Indian children because of these kind of crazy issues.
Wow, man. There's a lot of things that we could keep talking about, and for sure we would love you to have you back.
Yeah.
At some point, right? For a second part.
Yes,
know?
I mean we barely touched the
We
surface.
This is obviously a space, and I think this was really important just to be talked. But before we leave, I have 2 questions.
Okay.
For you. And the first one is, do you think younger you would be happy with what you have become?
I most definitely will say yes. I think it was after the Capitol fell, and the United States Capitol, and I remember my younger psyche wrote a little note to me, and the younger person. I'll tell you a little. Here's a factoid. When I was little, my name's always been Jonathan, but when I was little, my parents called me Than. There was too many Johns and Jonathans, so they called me Than, the last 4 letters of that word. But that young man, that Than, he wrote me a letter and said, don't take things too hard on yourself. You know, we did the best that we could. You took those things and look at us now. You know, you're a pastor. You work in the community. All that sadness and everything that you endured over there during those times, it made us who we are. And he was very proud because we're still alive. There were so many times I could have quit. We could have quit and wouldn't even be here talking to you. That's how it was. But to know that today, he is very proud of me because we changed our stars and we changed for the better, and we have purpose. And it's not partying and beating up people and being like that. It's helping others and making sure that we leave this place a little bit better than how we found it. And so I look back to him and I would say thank you for having faith in me and giving us a chance, because it's really him, that younger person, that kind of drives it to make these things right for 51 years of feeling ugly. And I think, and I know that it helps because a lot of the pain and sadness that I have, it helps others because I can sit, like sometimes like it says in that Bible, I'm all things to all people. I've lived a homeless life. I've lived the alcoholic life. I've lived that suicidal life. You know, I've lived a lot of things, and they're not fun, but I think it's because I'm here to help others.
Wow, man. What a way to finish this. Really, thank you for coming today.
It was an honor. Thank you.
I think it's a blessing to have you here. I think it's a blessing to have you in my life, for sure.
You're a good brother.
And we're looking forward to work with you, and I'm looking forward to be part of like what is next, and for sure we would like to have you here again.
Oh, for sure, anytime. I thank you so much for the opportunity. This is a huge honor. I mean, you know, like you said, would the younger one be happy with what you've become? Of course, because back when we were younger, no one wanted to talk to us anyway. And hopefully, you know, I was joking around. I'm going to be on a podcast today. Hopefully, I'm interesting enough for the masses, because
you just knocked it out of the park, man, for sure.
Oh, won't be long.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. And thank you guys for watching us today. See you next Friday.
Take care.